Hello friends, this video on breathing and exchange of gases part 1 is brought to you by examfear.com. No more fear from exam. Topics to be covered in this lesson are introduction, respiratory organs, mechanism of breathing, exchange of gases, transport of gases, respiration regulation, and disorders of respiratory system. So, yet another important system of our body, respiratory system. So that is where we actually talk about breathing and exchange of gases. So breathing and gas exchange is a vital part of respiratory system. Now you might be wondering that a few lessons back we already learned about cellular respiration. Right? We talked about how food is utilized to produce energy in the form of ATP molecules. We already discussed about that. So now, what different are we going to talk about in breathing? So let me first clarify how is breathing and gaseous exchange related to the process of digestion, the process of absorption and the process of cellular respiration. So let me first clarify that so that you get an idea about what are we going to study here in this lesson. Now let us suppose in our previous lesson what did we see? It is not only a continuation of the previous lesson but it will also be a recap for you. Okay, so now let us suppose that we eat something. Say you eat a burger. Now what happens when you eat the burger? In our previous lesson, we talked about digestion and absorption. So obviously when you eat it, the process of digestion starts right from the oral cavity. Then it goes down the esophagus, stomach and finally into the small intestine. So by the time the food reaches the small intestine, it is completely digested and then it is completely absorbed also. Right? So now once the food is absorbed, what happens? Now, the food which you have eaten is in the form of the simplest form. And what is that simplest form? Maybe, for example, something like glucose, right? So now, these glucose have been transported. Once it is absorbed by the small intestine, then it is transported to different parts of the body. Now, let us suppose each and every cell of the body has received glucose. But now, how the body can utilize glucose? The body needs to convert the glucose into ATP molecules, that is energy, right? Now, how glucose will get converted into energy? That is what we talked about in cellular respiration. But for that, they need oxygen. So that is why the glucose molecules are now shouting for the need of oxygen. Now here in this lesson, we are going to talk about how this oxygen reaches each and every cell of the body. Because oxygen is something which is not getting produced inside our body, right? So it is coming from somewhere outside. So we are only going to focus on this part, that how this exchange of gases, how is oxygen coming inside the body, how is it reaching each and every cell of the body, and also once the process of cellular respiration happens, we know, right, that the product is carbon dioxide. So that carbon dioxide also needs to be thrown out because the body doesn't need that. So here in this lesson, we'll focus on how oxygen is taken in and it is actually sent to the respective cells and how the carbon dioxide is given out or it is sent out of the body. So that is our aim in this lesson called breathing and exchange of gases. Okay, so with this brief introduction about this chapter, we will start our discussion on breathing and exchange of gases. So now, as discussed, we eat food, the food gets digested and then the food gets absorbed by the small intestine and then it is sent to different parts of the body through the blood. Now, once each and every cell of the body gets the food in its simplest form, they need to oxidize the food to provide energy. Now, for this oxidation, what do they need? They need oxygen. So, oxygen has to be taken in. So, now this process we will talk about in this lesson. And also, During the process of cellular respiration, where glucose is oxidized to produce energy in the form of ATP molecules, their carbon dioxide is also released. So the carbon dioxide also needs to be sent out of the body. So basically, taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide, that is nothing but exchange of gases between environment and our body. And this is what we will talk about in breathing and gaseous exchange. So we will not talk about cellular respiration because we have already discussed about that part. So here we'll only talk about how we take in oxygen, how oxygen reaches the cells of the body, and how carbon dioxide comes from the cells of the body and how it is thrown out of the body. So that we'll only discuss that portion. So now the questions which come to your mind now. How does the exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide take place with the atmosphere? Because oxygen is something which is present in the atmosphere, and our job is to take that oxygen inside our body and send it to each and every cell of the body. So how that process is happening? Similarly, the carbon dioxide which is produced as a result of cellular respiration, that is also produced inside the cells of the body. So how is that carbon dioxide sent from the cell to the atmosphere? Again, how oxygen reaches different cells of the body. Now, even if you take it in, how it actually goes, how the process happens, how carbon dioxide from different cells reach the right place to be expelled out, and which is that right place. So we will talk about all these. By the end of this lesson, all these questions will be answered. So for that, we'll have to talk about respiration. Because breathing and exchange of gases is a vital part of respiration. I would not say we are going to discuss the whole of respiration, because cellular respiration we have already discussed. But other than cellular respiration, we will discuss all other aspects of respiration here. So this is a life process which involves intake of oxygen from surroundings and then using that oxygen for oxidation of food, where oxidation of food is nothing but oxidizing glucose to release energy, and this energy is released in the form of ATP molecules. You remember we spoke about the different types of respiration, like aerobic respiration, anaerobic respiration, and we saw that in aerobic respiration almost around 36 to 38 molecules of ATP were produced. So we discussed all those stuff. And finally, elimination of carbon dioxide, which was produced as a byproduct. So all these things taken together is known as respiration. But here in this lesson, we are going to talk about only the external respiration. That is only the intake of oxygen. We will talk about this part and we will talk about this part. So we will only talk about these two. So let us look at the respiration as a process. So what is respiration? It is nothing but oxidation of assimilated molecules to release their bond energy. As we know, when we eat food, so food is in complex form, right? They are in the form of, say, carbohydrates, proteins or fats. So they are in those forms. But once we eat them, they are broken down into their simpler forms, and as the process of digestion continues, they are finally broken down into simplest absorbable form. Now these simple absorbable form, they hold energy in their bonds. So the glucose molecules are oxidized to release energy in the form of ATP molecules. And this is how ATP molecule look like. Thank you. Please visit www.examfear.com to watch more videos, attempt free online test, get free study material, find tutors and mentors. Thank you once again.